Welcome to Sacrilegious Discourse.
For this is what the Sovereign Lord says.
Why do you need prophets to tell people who you are and what you want?
If you can justify everything that the God of the Bible has done, then you can justify any of your behavior.
A lot of this mentality is trickling into what is now mainstream right-wing Christianity.
I am capable of empathy greater than this God of the Bible.
This is a Bible that they tell kids. This is the good Lord. This is the good book. He is fantasizing about murder, mass murder.
Head over to sacrilegiousdiscourse.com right now to find out how to leave us a review or support us on Patreon.
Hey there, sinners and saints. It's your favorite Bible-bashing duo from Sacrilegious Discourse, and we need your help.
That's right, folks. We're raising funds for some heavenly equipment and a studio that doesn't sound like it's in the depths of hell.
Our current setup, let's just say it's more apocalypse than audiophile.
So if you want to hear us dissect the Bible without the background noise of demonic squirrels, chip in a few bucks.
We're aiming for $5,000 to upgrade our audio and build a studio worthy of blasphemous banter.
Donate today and help us spread the good word of atheism.
You can find a link right on our homepage, sacrilegiousdiscourse.com. Every dollar counts.
Even if it's from your collection plate. Husband!
Wife!
What the fuck are we doing today?
Well, today is going to be a special episode for everybody. Mm-hmm. It's not just,
it's a bonus,
patrons
but it's
or anything like that. It's a bonus episode.
An open bonus.
And anybody can listen to this. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And some of you may have noticed that we have a shitty president. It's one of those things that some people may not know. I'm not sure.
I kind of remember waking up.
Yeah.
And being like, who's this Trump dude? Wow. He's an interesting looking guy.
Yeah. So anyway, Trump, right?
That guy.
Yeah. He's kind of this isn't specifically directed by Trump, but it's part of the whole thing, right? And we're going to get into that a little bit more. But what we're going to be talking about today is the, in my opinion, unlawful detention of Mahmoud Khalil. Okay.
Who dat?
Well, I'm going to get a little bit more into that, but let's just say it's a free speech issue.
It is indeed. And I was just kidding when I said who dat, because I'm actually the one that suggested this topic to you because I was heated.
It's a great topic. And,
it is.
And
I was hot, though.
I'm glad you reminded me of it as far as a topic as possible usage today. So,
yes.
That being said, are you ready to hop into this episode?
I sure as fuck am.
All right, let's do it.
Okie dokie.
All right, today we are going to be going over the case and implications of Mahmoud Khalil.
Okay.
And you might be asking, if you don't know already, who is Mahmoud Khalil and why do I give a fuck?
You should give a fuck.
You should. So let's just set the scene here, okay?
All right.
Imagine this. You're a graduate student at a prestigious university.
Okay.
Passionate about human rights and free speech.
As I am.
Right. You participate in peaceful protests advocating for the rights of an oppressed group.
You mean like what happened back in the 60s? Like when all those college students were protesting
that's
the Vietnam War?
There's things happened back then too.
Right?
Yeah. Then one day, you're suddenly detained by the U.S. government, not for committing a crime, but for alleged ties to a foreign terrorist organization. There's no formal charges, no trial, just indefinite detention.
Yeah, they just pick you up.
Yeah.
They just disappear you into a van and take you off.
Because that's what America's all about, right? Indefinite detention with no formal charges and no trial.
I mean, that's why we love Guantanamo Bay, right?
Right.
That's what we do with them, right?
It's a great fucking vacation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we all want to go, isn't it?
That's where we put our deplorables or whatever.
Yeah. So that's exactly what happened to Mahmoud Khalil. Khalil is a Palestinian, a permanent U.S. resident, and a student at Columbia University.
I just want to reemphasize in case nobody heard you. A legal permanent resident.
Yes.
Permanent resident. Allowed to be here.
Right.
Also married to an American.
Right.
Completely 100% allowed to be here.
Yeah.
Not here illegally.
Right. And
sorry, go on.
He's been an outspoken critic of Israel's military actions on March 8th, he was arrested by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement under vague accusations of having connections to Hamas.
Because if you protest what's happening to the Palestinians, you are automatically very excited about Hamas and everything that they do, and you are a traitor to your country and a terrorist yourself.
Right. And to be clear, they are arresting him on claims that his activism aligns with Hamas, but they haven't charged him with anything specific. And just to clarify the allegations even more, just so we know exactly what we're talking about, okay? Mm-hmm. The Department of Homeland Security alleges that Khalil has done pro-Palestinian activism at Columbia University, and it aligns with Hamas, which is not illegal.
Right.
I mean, aligning with a group through speech and action, as long as it's not harmful, is not illegal.
What are you, a snowflake? Are you a fucking thought police?
The supposed evidence, his participation in protests and distributing materials that may have originated from Hamas's media arm. There's no proof of it, but that's the strongest thing that they have. And he was also sanctioned by Columbia University for organizing an unauthorized event that allegedly glorified Hamas's actions on October 7th, 2023.
Oh, I don't know if you're aware of this, because this just came out today, actually, that he and a couple of other students who were also sanctioned for similar activities are starting up a case against the school for having released personal student information to ICE about them.
Good.
No, I mean, by good, you mean good that the kids are doing this.
Yes.
Not good that...
No, absolutely.
School,
good that they're pressing the school for that.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because fuck that.
Right. The problem is that all this stuff falls under constitutionally protected free speech. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, he protested, he organized events, he spoke out. None of that rises to the level of fucking terrorism or support for terrorism.
Right.
Not even close. So this is what the upheaval is all about, okay? And the problem is not so much in what is happening with this person, but it's it's what it might indicate for the rest of us going forward in the Trump administration, right?
Well, they're tiptoeing, like not really tiptoeing anymore, but they're running up to lines just to now see what they can get away with.
Right.
And they're getting away with a lot. Because even though they're losing in the courts, the court doesn't have a way to enforce its decisions.
Right. Yeah. And this is more about what has been promoted by the Trump administration as things that they're planning on doing and how they're saying they're going to handle certain things with certain groups of people. And it's more about the silencing of dissent than it is anything else. And the problem with that is that even the United States has a horrible history of how we've handled dissent in the past.
I mean, think of the McCarthy era.
Well, yeah, that's what I was just about to get into. So Khalil's case isn't happening in a vacuum. This fits a long pattern of governments, of our government, cracking down on dissent under the guise of national security. So there was the McCarthyism, which we talked about, I think that was last week in our special episode, in our Patreon episode, where people were blacklisted as communists for simply questioning U.S. policy.
Yeah, because I think you were going over the terms fascism and communism and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, and we talked about a few more things that happened back then in that episode, but I'm going to move ahead to some more relevant modern ideas.
Sure. I was just trying to make sure I remember correctly.
Sure. Yeah. In the early 2000s, the post 9/11 crackdowns, the Patriot Act gave law enforcement sweeping surveillance powers, allowing them to detain people without charge, disproportionately targeting Muslim and Middle Eastern communities. And then more recently than that, the Black Lives Matters protesters have been branded as domestic terrorists, and undercover federal agents infiltrated demonstrations because of that.
Yeah, they rolled up in black vans and just shoved people into their vans and then disappeared them.
Right. And the pattern's always the same. You find the enemy, you strip away their rights, you justify it as security, and there you go. You've just squashed a whole fucking movement, right?
An entire rebellion is now laid to rest because who wants to risk speaking up after that?
Right. And the First Amendment is supposed to protect all speech, including controversial, offensive, and political speech. But in practice, that's not usually how it works. Not always how it works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But I mean, even Martin Luther King Jr. was spied on by the FBI because of his activism, and it was seen as a threat, right? Anti-war activists, as you were saying earlier, were put on I'm talking about anti-war activists that they were put on FBI lists in the 70s for the anti-war stuff back then. But then anti-war activists after 9/11 were put on no-fly lists for their activism. There's even been journalists recently covering protests that have been arrested, and they're reporting framed as incitement. Yeah. So these are all things that have happened in recent history, you know. Right. So when does activism become terrorism in the government's eyes? And it's real simple. It's whenever it becomes inconvenient for those in power. I
was going to say, the obvious answer is when the government doesn't like what the protesters are saying.
Right. Right. And some of you might be asking, how does this apply to, you know, what we talk about normally? So,
which is reading the Bible.
If an atheist group held a large-scale protest against religious overreach, could they be labeled as a threat?
According to the head of our military, Pete Hegseth, yes.
Yeah, and we did an episode about him, too, because we're increasingly having to cover this bullshit in the fucking government. Right?
Why do I know the name of the head of the motherfucking military? I don't give a shit about who is leading the military, because I just want to live my fucking lazy ass, easy American first country or first world life. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's supposed to be like, yay, we've reached the pinnacle. But no, I have to fucking learn the names of these asshats that basically either want to kill me or kill my kids.
Right. Well,
you'll be fine, honey. I mean, you're a straight white male.
Well, I don't know until they decide that secular activists are going to get prosecuted. You know, the thing that you may not know is that there's already been in the past, not too far back in the past, there's already been targeting of atheists and secular groups. So it was in 2013, reports surfaced that the IRS was unfairly targeting atheist and secular nonprofit organizations.
Jesus Christ.
Subjecting them to excessive scrutiny compared to religious organizations. So like groups like Freedom from Religion Foundation were forced to prove that they weren't anti-religious in order to receive tax-exempt status, while churches were granted exemptions with no issue.
Yeah, it's still that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always harder for people who don't go with the grain. Yeah. You know, like if you're something that's outside of what they want, then you're going to have a harder time.
And it's like we're just trying to fucking exist.
Yeah. The U.S. government routinely funds faith-based initiatives while denying similar support to secular organizations. In 2020, secular organizations were excluded from COVID-19 relief grants given to religious groups. A lawsuit by the Freedom from Religion Foundation argued that this violated the First Amendment's Establishment Clause, but religious favoritism persisted.
I had no idea. Yeah. That's very interesting.
Yep.
Huh.
And there's been quite a few arrests that may be targeted at secular protests, and like the Satanic Temple protests, they're definitely stopped quicker than some other protests that happened. Mm-hmm. So there are definite bias towards people who are not Christian.
So I have a question, actually two questions with regard to this.
Yeah.
The first was, so we were like seriously wanting to attend various atheist gatherings and conventions this summer into fall.
Sure.
How do you feel about that? Like, am I putting you on the spot by asking you during a live
I think
episode?
That, I mean, I still would love to go and tell those, and I think we should. But I mean, you have to remember, like the last time. Well, you didn't make it to the last atheist one, but like the Kentucky Free Thought Convention that we went to
the 2 years ago, the time before last,
3 years ago, maybe. I don't know. It was a while back.
It was the time before last.
Yeah. That one had religious protesters right outside the fucking door, and they were kind of like nutty. Like,
and then the one that actually made it inside.
Yeah. We had one that actually came up and talked to us, and we thought maybe he had a bomb, honestly. Like it was like he was weird. We don't think, but I mean, he was really acting very strange.
Yeah, and he had a backpack, and he was being very antagonistic, and he had purchased VIP tickets, and he was getting right up close to the main speakers, and then he had to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, and that's when we approached the people that were running the convention like, hey, you might want to keep an eye on this guy because I don't know what he's up to.
We were like, he's in the bathroom and has a backpack and has been acting shady, and you need to go check him absolutely right now because I'm not trying to get bombed today.
Right. Yeah. So that was a little bit scary, but, you know, nothing bad happened.
No.
But that doesn't mean something couldn't happen.
Because it's gotten even hotter since then.
Well, and there's a lot of hate that we encounter online for just being who we are. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just because we don't believe in God.
Right.
We encounter a lot of hate.
Right.
And people calling us names and saying, you know, all kinds of shit about us.
Well, honey, that's not very Christian.
Well, that's kind of the tact I've taken recently. I'm nice them to death, and I say really nice things, and I point out, you know, I nice them to death.
Well, bless your heart, sweetie. I hope God lifts you up.
Well, not quite like that, but like there was a guy the other day that was like saying that he was considering self-harm because, you know, he's questioning his God now because of us, and I'm like, it seemed very put on.
Well, yeah.
So, but whatever, you know, it's fine. And so I offered, you know, I was like, oh, I'm very sorry that you are feeling this way. You know, maybe you should seek out a counselor or a friend that can help you through this time. And I said, and if you do end up, you know, breaking away from your religion, there are groups to help you through that as well, like the Recovering from Religion Foundation. Sent him a link, and that was that.
Right.
And I never heard back from him. You know, like, I mean, you just have to like offer it up in a way that they can't be like, oh, you
fucking atheist assholes. It's like, oh, you're actually nicer than the Christians. Wow, weird. Yeah. I didn't think atheists could, you know, be nice and not rape people and eat babies.
Right, right, yeah.
Because we've got that answer too. Like, but what stops you from raping people and eating babies?
Oh, these conversations that we end up having to have.
Fucking ethics, ridiculous. You asshole. Are you telling me that only your fear of going to hell is what stops you? According to your own faith, God knows your heart. So you're not... Anyways.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it is very frustrating. It is very frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so that was my first question.
Sure.
So we are still going to probably try to attend things.
If we are, yeah.
I mean, we don't have a school-age child who would be left unparented. So really it's just like us putting ourselves at risk, and I'm okay with that.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
There's no more risk than flying today these days.
Right. Oh my God! Like we'd really be tempting the fates if we flew.
Oh yeah, to an atheist convention.
The atheist convention.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah. That I couldn't do that.
Right.
You can fly or you can attend an atheist convention, but you can't do both.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question I had was, I had mentioned this when we talked about Pete Hegseth, and now we're talking about Mahmoud and the, whole First Amendment being trampled and atheists getting squashed.
Right.
When I talked about packing a go bag just in case, like, are we there yet?
I mean, I have no problem with anybody packing a go bag. Like that. Like, I don't personally, I'm a little less inclined to think that something's going to go wrong immediately.
Right. Like, no, I'm an alarmist. I panic. I always panic. And I'm always like, let's plan for the worst and hope for the best and be pragmatic and, just in case. That's like my biggest thing, right? Just in case.
Right.
But
I guess to me, my go bag is you, kid, and the cat, like that's.
But not the snake.
I mean, it's 20-gallon fish tank, and that's a lot of work, I don't know. I'm sorry, man.
Like, I'll toss in a mouse before we leave and be like, hope you can make it.
Leave the top open.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Oh, yeah, you know what? We could leave the top open and leave different mouses, like, around the house, different places.
There you go.
So that he'd be good for a good while.
I don't know. The mice might get bad after a while. Don't they go bad after a while?
I mean... Well, how long? Okay, because they're frozen, right? And so, like, they're frozen mice.
Yeah, sure.
And we like let them defrost like in hot water.
Right.
But in this case, we just be leaving them out.
Right.
So how long would it take them
I don't know.
to
I'd have to look that up, you know?
I mean, I feel like he'd be okay.
We could like set one just on the floor and then like the other one could be on top of like an ice pack so that it stays cold a little longer.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
get them at least 3 out or 2 out, I mean, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I actually really like this plan because he would last at least 3 weeks under that.
Right.
And probably 4 or even 5 weeks because they can go a few weeks in between feedings.
Yeah. Maybe we could find a way to come back and if he's still around.
I mean, after a month, if we can't come back to the house, honestly, the snake is the least of our worries.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, things have gone real bad if after a month we can't come back to check on our snake.
If we have enough time to figure out how to take the snake, we'll figure out how to take the snake. But I'm just saying, like, my immediate go bag is just, you know, the quick pickup. So.
I mean, your mom has a key to the house.
Right, but hypothetically, my mom would be going with us, you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, not necessarily. Like, we're the ones that are podcasting.
Well, okay.
That's what I was talking about. Like, we're podcasting about atheism and First Amendment rights.
Got it.
And so I'm just scared a little bit. Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm off track as always. It's me. So please continue.
Yeah, no, we were in the middle of talking about how there has been some actual crackdowns on atheists and secular people in the world. They're in this country.
Mm-hmm. And then I made it about me. Go on.
Right. Mm-hmm. So there are actual laws restricting secular expression. So some states ban atheists from holding public office.
Okay, I did know that.
Right. And a lot of secular groups struggle to get legal recognition in some states, especially when challenging religious institutions on issues like tax exemptions or public displays of faith.
Interesting.
Yeah. So those are some issues that we currently deal with, and with the big push by Trump towards Christianity specifically,
and with Pete Hegseth, running the military,
it's very concerning. So, and this isn't just a Palestinian issue. This is an issue for anyone who challenges powerful institution, and it's not just a U.S. issue.
Right.
Blasphemy laws worldwide target secular activists. Atheists have been arrested for their speech in places like India and Indonesia. Saudi Arabia executed the man for spreading atheist ideas in 2017, which probably that's not the only time they've executed someone, but that's the one that, you know, I was able to find right there. And then back in the U.S., outspoken atheists in politics are unelectable, according to, you know, like if you come out as atheist, you're just not electable. People won't elect you.
Right.
Even if people don't disagree with your views, they see you as unelectable in this country.
Right.
So
it's kind of like electing a woman as president.
Right.
You have a badge, you're unelectable.
Right. And I think the problem with this is that if this case sets a precedent for others to be criminalized along the same ideas and the same reasons, you know, and then we have to ask ourselves, could criticizing, and you kind of already went down this road, but could criticizing religious influence in government be framed as inciting this extremism?
I think that if they wanted to say it is, then yes. Right.
And so what does this mean for people like us, right? That's the question that we're asking right now. And the truth is it's the same things we've been talking about. You know, like the important aspect of life in this country right now with what we're dealing with in the government is to support the groups that are going to fight against these things from happening, like the ACLU, the Freedom from Religion Foundation. These are very, very important groups that are fighting for our rights every single day. And they're going to push back against these ideas that are being brought forth by the Trump administration. And these are dangerous ideas for our democracy.
Right.
And we need to push back against them.
One thing that I've been very proud to see and very hopeful is the number of people who have been protesting and attending rallies for Mahmoud to be for him to be let go.
Right. Well, and that's part of what I was going to say is things you can do as well. Like you need to know your rights. You know, activism isn't a crime, and you need to learn what is and what isn't protected free speech. Like you cannot yell fire in a crowded theater, right? There are some forms of non-protected speech.
Right.
But if you are versed in what is protected and non-protected speech, then you are able to speak fluently about that to people who are trying to fight against you.
Right.
Right. So that's an important thing to consider knowing. And then don't just accept what the government tells you. You know, I think that's what a lot of people, the government and media, because media and government are working kind of with each other sometimes. If you're watching Fox, for sure, now.
Yeah.
So,
although even that cunt-faced bitch Ann Coulter, even she said, whoa, I love deporting people more than anybody. Like, she said something to that effect.
Yeah.
And even I would say, hold on a sec, but did he break a law though? And I was like, who is this bitch? And who, like, where's Ann Coulter?
Right. Well, I mean, I think Trump is going a bit too far for even
Ann
Fox.
Coulter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're like, wait, you have to, like, at least kind of break a law.
Well, and I have the feeling that we're going to run into the Trump administration saying things like, this is a national security issue, right? You should never. And I didn't even during 9/11, or well, the post 9/11 period, you should never accept a national security claim from our government.
Right.
You should do more research. I'm not saying that there's not times when there is a national security issue.
Right.
But just because our government says we have a national security issue doesn't make them right. Yeah. That doesn't, just because they say it does not make them right. That those are used to push political agendas.
Right.
So
he has stated that we are at war. Like when he just recently, he was having some Venezuelan gang members deported. And then a judge said, I'm so sorry. Can you hold up on that 1 minute and turn your fucking plane right around? And then the planes that had already took off were like, we didn't get that memo. Sorry. And they kept flying. So now that judge is like, I'm so sorry, but what the fuck actually did you just do? And so reporters were asking him, like, what's going on there? Like, you just declared them, I forget, like, what law he used.
Yeah.
It was, like, an old law that hasn't been used since, like, World War II or some shit.
Okay.
He declared them, like, wartime enemies or some shit like that.
Sure.
And they were, like, telling him, like, that's a wartime law. Like, why did you do that? And he specifically told the journalist, we are at war.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's like,
when that's dangerous.
It's like, no, when we say you have to declare a war, we don't mean you say the words Michael Scott from The Office.
Well, that's another problem with what we've set as precedences, or as a precedent in this country, is that declaring war used to mean that you got the Congress to agree.
Well, only Congress can. Only Congress can declare war. But
I believe, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe the last time that war was actually declared, because I didn't look this information up, but I know World War II is one of the very last times officially that war was actually declared by our Congress.
Okay.
So it's not something that actually happens a lot.
So we can go to war without declaring official war.
Well, the president has the right to enact security measures to defend our country.
Like, say, for example, Vietnam.
Because we can't always wait on fucking Congress to say, yeah, we're at war.
Right.
Right. So that is an actual thing.
It's supposed to be a check and balance.
Right. But the Congress is supposed to check that power.
Right.
And in practice, that doesn't happen.
Right.
So presidents can just kind of say, we are at war. Now, he's abusing that to the nth degree.
Sure.
But it is something that has been done in the past. So it's not something that he's necessarily abusing insofar as the power to do that. He's just abusing the way it's being utilized.
Right. He's abusing the standard abuse.
Right. Yeah.
So, he has declared then that we're at war. So I guess we're at war.
Well, and that brings me to my final point.
Oh,
so,
that's great.
Yeah. So these are things I can't even hardly keep track of everything that Trump is doing and his administration is doing.
Flood the zone.
Right. And like this thing with Mahmoud Khalil, right? This is something that did hit my radar, that I did know about, but I know there's so much more that I missed along the way, right? This one rose to the top.
Well, and you kind of asked me, like, I'm sorry, who? When
Well, I had to be reminded of what it was.
Like,
right?
wait, why are we talking about him?
Right.
And I was like, he's the guy who, and then I reminded you. And you remember once I told you.
Sure. Because obviously I do care very much about free speech issues.
Yeah.
And that is something that I've always cared very deeply about. But the only way to really make sure that these things get covered correctly, and the final thing that we can do is to always support independent journalism.
Yes.
Make sure that we are not taking all of our information from people who are getting paid to be entertainers.
Yes.
I mean, not that independent journalists sometimes aren't doing some form of entertainment, but they're doing it out of a passion for the projects that they're working on.
Right.
So definitely support them. Make sure we're getting the pushback from the right people out into the world, and just don't roll over on this government. Like we have to stand up and say, no, this is wrong. Mm-hmm.
Something else I might suggest too is our legacy news sources, like our quote unquote mainstream media.
Yeah.
They're all doing what you said, which is rolling over for the entire Trump administration. And they are whitewashing and completely just denying coverage of certain news pieces or using language that downplays or whatever. They are not delivering the full stories. So in addition to independent news sources, I might recommend also picking up some non-American news sources.
Yeah.
I, within the last month, have begun listening to news channels from Ireland and New Zealand, the UK, and I think Australia.
Okay.
Is the other one? I can't remember. There's 4 different countries, English speaking, that I've begun listening to.
Yeah.
And I don't listen to every episode because sometimes they speak about something in their country that, quite frankly, as an ignorant, spoiled American, I'm just not interested in.
Sure.
Because it has to do with, like, local celebrity that I've never heard of in their country.
Right.
Or something to that effect, right?
Yeah.
But when they are discussing American politics or Trump or how the
war in Ukraine is
the war
them.
in Ukraine, or the what's that fucking taxes on not taxes, but he's like, fuck,
tariffs.
Tariffs. Thank you. I couldn't remember the word. Like the tariffs.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I listen to those, and it's been fascinating to listen to other countries talk about it from an outside perspective. And it reminds me that we are a global community. As much as America wants to isolate itself, as much as Trump and his cronies and the Republicans want to say America first and fuck the rest.
Yeah.
We are a global community, and everything that we do impacts the rest of the world. And everything the rest of the world does impacts us. So I would highly recommend, you don't have to be a nerd wonk like me and listen to like 5 or 4 different, international news sources.
Right.
Just pick one.
Yeah. No, it's good to get a different perspective, for sure.
It really is. And, if you're only going to pick one, I would say right now, listen to what the Canadians are saying. Because
that was one. I don't think you said the Canadians.
Did I not?
List. No.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's one.
The Canadians are both freaked the fuck out, and they are very hurt.
Yeah.
Like hurt feelings.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
they've been our best, buds for years.
Right. But I mean, like, they would kind of make fun of us, like, we're the nice guys.
Them, right?
We're the nice guys, and you guys are the gun-toting, worried fat fucks, right?
It's always been a fun, banter sort of.
Well, they are, I mean, just, you guys, if you're only going to listen to one, listen to what the Canadians are saying, because it's such a unique perspective, and they also are like, fuck America, but at the same time they're also like,
we love you.
We know no, what they're saying is, but we know that it's Trump and it's not all the people, and we're so sorry this is happening to you, and we're so sorry for what's gonna happen to you coming when we turn off the fucking electricity because of your fuckface president. Like, it's such an interesting perspective. Most recently, I'm sorry, I know this is off topic, but it's not. It's all part of a whole.
Right.
Most recently, I listened to an Irish journalist interviewing a Canadian journalist, talking about the tariffs and how they feel about Trump wanting to buy Greenland and the resources up in the Arctic and just, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it was so interesting to listen to two different countries talking to each other about America as a third person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As you are not involved in this.
Right.
Conversation. We are talking about you, not to you.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's definitely, that's, we think that a lot of people are very stuck in their viewpoint from our country. They don't really recognize that the rest of the world exists.
Right.
As anything more than a tourist destination.
Right.
So I think it's good to get out of your bubble.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's all I really had tonight. I just, we have to keep calling out these injustices and these things that are going wrong right now, because if nobody does it, then nobody does it.
Right.
And to us, it's very important.
Well, it is. And also doing what's right is important, not just speaking out about free speech, but speaking up for the Palestinians and speaking up for people like Mahmoud Khalil, who, needs to be freed.
Right.
Because fuck ICE and fuck this fucking presidency.
Yeah. Yeah. Just make sure one of y'all stand up for us when we have to go.
And on that note.
Yeah. We will see you soon. We are going to be getting out. I've got a weekly replay coming up soon here, probably tomorrow. And then we'll be starting after that into the, who's it?
Haggai. I call him Haggis.
Yeah. There you go. All right. So we'll see you guys then.
Bye.
Hey, wife, I guess that's the end?
But husband, that's just sad.
It doesn't have to be. We are on lots of social media platforms like Twitter. Our handle there is sacrilegious_D.
For D's nuts.
Oh my God. Stop doing that. Anyway, we're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. There's a link to all of our social media sites at our website.
Ooh, we have a website?
Yeah, it's sacrilegiousdiscourse.com, where you can also find a link to our merch shop.
We have a merch shop?
Yep, we have podcast-themed clothing, mugs, notebooks, and more, as well as an atheist and science-themed products.
Wow, our fans should really go check that out right now.
Definitely. They can get in touch with us by sending an email to sacrilegiousdiscourse@gmail.com. But before they do that, we could really use some help.
Oh yeah? With what?
Well, it's not free running the podcast, and we need some financial support in order to get better equipment, which will free up time so we can concentrate on our podcast and our fans.
Okay, so what should they do?
Head over to patreon.com/sacrilegious discourse and sign up as a contributor on our podcast. Supporters there receive additional bi-weekly episodes that we record just for our Patreon members for as little as $2 a month.
Also, we'd really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe on whatever platform you're using.
And Apple Podcast reviews help us out tremendously.
Like and subscribe. Leave an Apple review. Join us on Twitter. Support us on Patreon. That's a lot of instructions. Don't forget to say thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.